Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.
Okay, I think we are ready to start now. So we've had a lovely break. This is the part now where you are completely free, and I do mean that, to ask me whatever you like. Nothing will upset me. I've had everything, and I do believe I should be able to answer all your questions. However, my perspective will only be from Islam when I answer your questions. All I know is what the religion says, okay? And then it's up to you to interpret it the way you want to. Now, we had one question already from one of the ladies over here about women's headdress. Why do we have to wear it? Okay, so I'm going to answer that first, if that's okay with everybody. Then I will open the floor to other questions. I've had quite a few questions while we were having lunch, and some of those people said they'd like to ask me that as well. So then we'll carry on and then go with the flow. Okay, right, so first of all, it's a very long and vast topic. Someone actually showed me a book over there somewhere on, the book over there on the hijab, and it was quite a fat book. Now, we need to look at the context in which, when Islam came, how women were being treated. Okay, there was sexual slavery going on, there was nudity going on, there was prostitution going on, did you know? And women were being treated really badly with no respect. They were being traded off as just business deals, you know. They were treated badly. There was no respect for women, okay? And they were being molested a lot. By molesting, we're talking about, within the English culture, wolf whistles and looking at them like pieces of meat, things like that, okay? So something had to be done, really, to start respecting them, covering them. Sins like fornication and adultery were strictly forbidden, like they are in the previous scriptures. And women are the attractive out of the two species, okay? In Islam, they are supposed to be the attractive out of the two species, male and female. They're like flowers, beautiful flowers, okay? And the men are the bees who get attracted to them, and then reproduction, isn't it? Okay, so with the modest covering, it respects ladies, and also it's a uniform in a way, like a nun has a uniform, to show she's a respectful, practicing person of her faith. Okay, and like that with women, Muslim women, they don't just confine their religion to their church or their mosque. They're out there as well in public, showing people that they are practicing Muslims, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to go on to my modesty slides to explain everything now. And I also want you to think a little bit on how Muslim women dress was even within England. If you go to pre-war days, Victorian days, everybody was covered. Okay, so let me just pop this slide up. Okay, now modesty is in all religions. It's not just Islam. Okay, so if we look at pictures of Greek Orthodox ladies, they are also dressed modestly. I have got a story to tell. I went to Greece and I walked into the Greek Orthodox church, and the Reverend asked me, "What religion are you then?" And I thought, now that's a strange question. I thought he would know that I'm Muslim because I was wearing my headscarf. And he goes, "Oh, no." I go, "Oh, I thought, you may know that." He had good English. And he said, "No, because everybody dresses like you here." Okay? I turned around and I nearly had a heart attack. I saw 3 ladies walk into the church. They were completely in plain black, completely covered with their beautiful black headscarf on and long black gown to the floor. And you know what? I thought, now I know why he's asking me what religion I am, because he thought I was Greek and I was disrespecting the religion. Because when I looked at myself, I was in a bright gypsy skirt and a bright flowery hijab. And that's when I realized, okay? The other story I'd like to tell is before I wore a hijab and after, okay? So there was this meat shop butcher, okay, where I used to go and get my meat. And the man used to always be chatting me up, okay? He'd like he'd get the meat and he'd give me the bag, and then he'd have a feel of my hand and things like that. And he'd be all flirt, flirt, flirt. Anyway, in the meantime, 9/11 happened, and after 9/11, when I looked into the religion, I started to wear my hijab. I went back to the same meat shop, and the man didn't recognize me. And all of a sudden, he called me sister. I thought, what a change that is. He's calling me sister now. He didn't recognize me. When he gave me the meat bag, he held it on edge just in case I'd touch his hand. I thought, this is the same man who used to like grab hold of my hand and wink, wink, nudge, nudge and all of that. So I have seen quite a lot of difference myself as well. So dressing modestly and head covering is a requirement from all the Abrahamic faiths, not just Islam. Muslim women dress in a way that is modest and dignified. The purpose of clothing is not only to protect oneself from physical elements, but also to protect oneself from immorality and pride. Okay? So we're looking at avenues of stopping any forms of fornication or adultery, rape and molesting here. Okay? However, at home, 90% of the time, we don't have our hijab. It's only when we go out in public. It's like a uniform as well to show we're practicing ladies, like a nun would wear her. I mean, think of Catholic nuns the way they wore in the olden days. You know, look at the lovely picture at the back there of the nun in her uniform. She's completely covered, isn't she? Except we do it not just within the church but outside as well. So there's a picture of a nun there. And, you know, we look at lovely ladies like Mother Teresa. She was Catholic, wasn't she? Was she Catholic? Yes. And she's wearing a headdress. And the biggest role model for us is Mary. So Jesus' mum, you'll never see her without a headdress on. And she's such a respected person, isn't she, as well? Now, the Quran was an update of the previous scriptures. In the Torah, it also tells you to cover your hair. And if you look, if you go into Jewish areas like Golders Green or Hackney, you actually see Jewish ladies wearing a form of a headscarf as well. And also, this quote is from Corinthians, but every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered dishonoureth her head, for that is even all one as if she were shaven. For if the woman had not covered, let her also be shorn. This is actually to do with Judaism. And these are pictures of people from different religions all covering their hair. So you will find that along the way with all religions. The more higher up they go in terms of religion, the more covered they are. I have definitely seen Sikh ladies dressed like that as well. I've got 2 videos now as well, which I'd like to put on to explain the hijab a bit more. Why there is such a stigma against the hijab.
Did you know Jewish women have their own hijab? It's called a teacher, and it serves the same purpose as a Muslim hijab. So why is there so much backlash against Muslim women for covering their hair? Throughout history, women across many cultures covered their hair as a sign of modesty or piety. Many Christian groups today continue the tradition of head covering, influenced by verses like 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 5 to 6, which says, "But every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. It's the same as having her head shaved." For example, Amish, Mennonite, and certain Pentecostal and Orthodox Christian communities still uphold this practice as a reflection of modesty and piety. Orthodox Jewish women today even wear a shaitel, a wig that fulfills their religious obligation to cover their hair in public. This practice is rooted in the Talmud, specifically Berakot 24a, which states the hair of a woman is nakedness. Yet when Muslim women choose to cover their hair with a hijab, they're often met with hostility. Why the double standard? The backlash against Muslim women is not about the act of
Look at her face.
hijab in particular has become a politicized symbol. In many Western societies, it's unfairly associated with oppression, extremism, or rejection of modern values. But these assumptions are rooted in an irrational fear towards Islam, better known as Islamophobia. Jewish women wearing a tikkun or Christian nuns in veils are criticized because their practices are seen as familiar or part of a Western heritage. Meanwhile, Muslim women, many of whom are people of color, face intersecting biases of racism and Islamophobia. This makes their practices more visible and, unfortunately, more targeted. The hijab is also tied to colonial history. During colonial rule, Muslim societies were pressured to abandon veiling as part of a broader effort to erase their cultural identity. Today, in countries like France, bans on the hijab are framed as secularism, but they disproportionately target Muslim women, while ignoring similar religious attire in other groups. But here's the reality. For many Muslim women, the hijab is not a symbol of oppression. It's a choice, a way to express faith, identity, and empowerment. Assuming otherwise denies them the agency to make their own decisions. Why do we celebrate diversity for some groups but criticize it for others? This double standard isn't about secular values. It's about who is seen as us and who is seen as other. The truth is, whether it's a tickle, a veil, or a hijab, these practices deserve the same respect because they are all expressions of deeply held beliefs. So the next time you see a Muslim woman in a hijab, think about this. Her choice is no different from an Orthodox Jewish woman wearing a shaitel. If one deserves respect, why not the other? Let's challenge these double standards and foster true understanding.
Okay. Now, something that I have definitely noticed is people call me sister more now with a hijab on, and there's a lot more respect. I have never been wolf whistled to again. I was very attractive without the hijab on. Even now, I would say people who have seen me without my hijab on, they say, oh, you know, you're really pretty and my hair's really long and everything. You know, this thing about let your hair down, that was an expression, did you know, of people when they go out to partying and clubbing, come on, let your hair down, is an attraction for the men, is it not? It's a symbol of, I don't know, reproduction. I'm putting it, you know, in a polite way. These things that let your hair down, you know, come on, let your hair down. That means go out and party and get the men. Okay. I have got one more. So a nun can be covered from head to toe in order to devote herself to God. But then if a Muslim girl does the same, she is oppressed. This, did you know, is amazing. This is actually the Queen of Austria in 1916. The Queen is entirely covered so that no other man can look at her because she was a really special woman and she's covered from head to toe. And this is just a picture I thought I'd put up just so that you can understand. If we look at Victorian ladies, right up to Victorian times, they were fully covered. They would not go out without a hat on. This one actually is the royal family. So there's the Queen and the Queen Mother and the Queen's grandmother. Can you see they're all in veils? Okay. Pardon? It is a funeral, but why are they covering their faces? You see? So people can't see their faces. Yes? Anyway, this is England now, okay? This is a BBC documentary that came on about the hijab, and it's looking at ladies in this country, what their dress used to be like. So I'm going to put that on now.
what's fascinating is that girls' hair is all covered, so women do not show long hair. So you see the girls, the shawls, completely covering them, and you don't see their hair at all, you see their faces. There's all this debate now about the hijab and about women covering their hair, and we forget that, we've lost that as part of our culture. 100 years ago, you wouldn't walk out in the streets of Lancashire with your hair down.
Okay, so that's England there. Hijab is not about oppression, it's freedom from evil eyes. That does not mean that all men have evil eyes. It just stops that, puts a barrier there, if you like. Okay? Modesty is the crown of a Muslim. Hijab forces a man to look at a woman with respect rather than as an object. So if you look at advertising out there, are women not exposed and clothes off to advertise, to make money? Exploited. Pornography. Look at pornography. Is that not a market out there? You see? It's that kind of stuff. You see? I think that's my bit on modesty done. Okay? Right. Let's now go on to more questions. There was quite a few questions. Let's have Wendy first.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Actually, on the train, you see quite young girls with their young children and a husband with them, and they are from top to bottom in black.
Yes.
So what is the actual difference between one hijab and the other black?
Yes, so what are the differences in the different categories of hijab, okay? First of all, children do not need to wear hijab, okay? And they are under puberty, so that stage isn't there. But you will see some children wearing it because their mothers want to get them used to it. Because once you reach puberty, nobody's going to bother. Okay? It's like praying 5 times a day. If you don't get the children used to it, nobody's going to bother praying. Try telling a teenager all of a sudden to start doing something when they're already not in the routine. So that's the reason why you get the children. Now, you get the different levels depending on the person. The Quran tells you to cover your hair, to be modestly dressed. Okay? But what level you take it to depends on your level of religion. Okay? So, the more higher up the hierarchy you are for religion, like nuns, will wear black. Why is it always you see nuns, especially the olden day Catholic nuns, why are they wearing plain black? Because that's the most least attractive colour, which will not attract anything. It's like colourful flowers will attract bees to fertilise. Yes? And make the seeds. And a closed flower, unperfumed and black, is not going to attract bees, is it? It's going to be left alone. Yes? That kind of stuff. Unwrapped sweet is going to attract the bees to take a lick of it. Okay? It's just trying to make you understand. So plain black is the colour which then stops the attraction, puts up the barrier the most. Okay? And then some ladies, they themselves choose. They think, well, you're still beautiful, you're still pretty with a hijab on, but we want to go that further mile and we want to put a niqab on, okay? And the niqab then will completely stop that interaction. No man is going to even try to even go up to somebody in a niqab to chat them up, is he? or molest them. Exactly. You don't know what she's going to be having under there. So it puts a total block straight away, doesn't it? Okay? And women themselves choose to wear the hijab. Okay? Once they become more religious, they decide themselves, they feel safer with it on. I've felt so safe since I've started to put it on. My husband opposed it when I started wearing it. That's my story. He said, no, you're not going out there with me like that on. He said, he goes, people are going to think you're my mum. And the truth of the matter is, one of his patients did see him, because he's a doctor, on the high street, and I was with him. And they said, oh, Dr. Naeem, we saw you in so-and-so shop and you were with your mum. And he thought, my mum? Oh, but my mum's passed away. And then he realised, oh, that must have been Sidra. But obviously, that patient saw me from behind, not from the front. So he used to come out and say, well, people are going to think you're my mum, so take that off right now. I'm not going out there with you, you know. So it was the opposite with me. And I said, no, I'm not going to take it off. And that's me. I became religious before he did. There was 2 levels of religion here going on in our family. So I got religious before him, and I got religious after 9/11, and he got religious after me. So there was a big discrepancy. But then it soon matched when he went to pilgrimage. Then he changed. Okay? Right. Does that answer your question? Yes? Brilliant. And I think you were next. So I've covered that. Yes, I have covered that. I do have a picture actually here, if I can find it, of a lady. I might have taken it off actually, because there was just so many slides. Okay, there's a lady at the back now.
I'd just like to point out, I've referred a number of times to Catholic nuns wearing all black.
Yes.
There are a number of us in this audience who are Catholic nuns.
Yes.
We may have worn black, like Catherine Macaulay, our foundress,
Yes.
but we no longer do.
Yes.
When we wore the habit, we wore it all the time.
Yes.
So that's one thing. I think it might be important to realise that not all nuns now wear.
Yes, correct. And that's exactly what I was explaining to Wendy. So when I went in that Greek Orthodox church, I was in a bright gypsy skirt. So it depends on our own self how further we want to take it. Okay? I myself, people who know me know I dress in bright colours. You rarely see me in plain black. Yeah, I'm preaching the religion. So, and today I wore navy. But, you know, it's personal preference. But what the religion tells you is to be dressed modestly. If you just need to look at the teenagers nowadays and see the way they're dressed, and then you realise a little bit that it's better to be dressed modestly. Right, let's get off the topic of modesty now, please, because there's so many other topics we need to get to. I'll choose the lady in the green first.
It's just a question about prayer, really.
Yes.
I was really interested that you only pray in the words that are, sorry, I'm not getting this right. What language was it?
Louder, please.
Sorry. It's about the prayer. So you have the exact words.
Yes.
But surely in your head,
Yes.
there is a translation, so you're understanding it in your own language.
Yes, that's
What
right.
is that difference? And also, just as a secondary, does that mean that you only pray in those, or do you actually do just you're talking to God?
Yes, we do. Yes, good. Brilliant question, by the way. So the question for the camera was about the Arabic. Do you understand what you are reading in your prayers? And also, do you speak to God in your own language? Yes, I do. So, first of all, the set prayer only is in Arabic. It's a set prayer for a reason, because if it wasn't a set prayer, nobody's going to bother doing it, are they? Who's going to bother praying? They're going to say, well, I already asked God in the morning for a slim body. I already asked God for chocolate in the afternoon. Well, I'll skip the evening prayers. I don't need to do them, you see. When it's a set prayer, it means we're going to do it, okay? We pray in Arabic, but that doesn't mean we do not understand what we are reading. So the verses of the Quran, from a young age, we would go to like a little Sunday school where we would learn the verses of by heart, but also their meanings. So that's where this little Quran stand is from. We would learn their meanings from a young age, what we are actually, just like the Lord's Prayer I put up, and I knew it all in English, you see. Now the set prayer is separate, but at the end then, that's the time when we talk to God in our own language, okay? And we can express our worries, problems, be grateful to Him, offload, like a free counseling process. That we would do in our own language. So I would do that in English, my first language. Okay? Okay, good. Right, let's go into this lady here.
Are the prayers, the 5 prayers, are they all the same? Or each Each one has a different.
Each prayer is different. So the sunrise prayer is lovely and short because God knows we want to go back to bed again. And the evening prayer, the night one, is longer because we're free at the end of the day where there's less duties and things to do. So they're all different. But most of them, they finish within 5 minutes. It's a little bit of time out, like a little bit like a tea break that you have to take yourself away from the world and completely connect with God. It's like a wireless connection, if you like, with God, where, you know, you can just be at peace and calmness and, you know, express your worries and problems at the same time. But there's huge benefits of prayer.
But they are all always the same. The morning prayer is always the same.
It starts with the same chapter, but they are different verses. So it starts off with the Lord's Prayer, but then the other chapters, it depends which ones you choose. And the lengths are different. Like I said, the sunrise one's the shortest, the nighttime prayer is the longest. Okay? Right, there's lots of questions, so I want to get through all of them. Shall I do you next?
I'd like to change the question into capital punishment.
Right. So we're going on to the war PowerPoint now.
Okay, so
Yes.
in America, I'm not certain how many states have the death penalty where there is premeditated, deliberate murder of another human being, which no one has the right to do so, and other killings where people do it as a premeditated. I believe there should be capital punishment. In this country, politicians are very strongly opposed to capital punishment.
Yeah.
And incorporating what Islam says, what should I understand is the...
Okay, let me explain. Capital punishment is actually in the Torah as well as in the Bible. And it is there. In fact, it's much harsher. Did you know? Okay. And some countries have capital punishment. It all depends on the law of the land. Now, I want you to think of England and Parliament, okay? Parliamentary laws are separate from the church. They used to be all together, okay? So if you go into the London dungeons, there's a big plaque there, and it tells you clearly at that time the law of the land was according to the Bible. Okay, and the law said, if you steal bread, their hands will get chopped off. If you do murder, you will be murdered too. Things like that. And that was the law according to the scriptures. What's happened now down the line in all the countries around the world is the politicians have decided to do their own laws, which are not in conjunction with the scriptures. So now the scriptures are not in hardly any laws, even in our Muslim countries. And the Muslim countries, some of them you'll get bits of Sharia law where capital punishment is there. And most of the countries, no, we've got our own law. Yeah, so if you murder, you either get let off or you go to prison. The reason for capital punishment in the first place is it's a deterrent to stop the evil act happening in the first place. Okay? So if you knew your hands are going to get chopped off when you steal some bread, are you going to do it? No. Okay? In Saudi Arabia, where this law is there, did you know when it's time to pray, all the shops leave all their shops open, including the gold shops. And nobody touches a thing because they're scared. It's a deterrent. Think of schools, everybody. I'm a teacher myself. When the law was you caned that person, nobody was naughty, were they, Wendy? And now you can't even touch a child, and the children can say and do what they like. Same with parenting. In the olden days, yes, we had our ears boxed. We respected our parents and we didn't do anything right. And even now, whatever my mum says, yes, Mum, I'll do it right now. Okay? But now, children, look at the way they are nowadays. No respect for parents. So the stricter the law, the better. However, did you know, in Islam, the laws were simplified and watered down, if you like. So in Islam, if someone gets murdered, did you know that you can actually give money? Sharia law states that the family of a murder victim can accept money as reparation rather than enforce the death penalty. So that is actually one bit where the law has updated, if you like. But because of those strict laws, the sin is far less. And if you look at numbers around the world, it's always less because of this strict law in place. But the reason why there's so much corruption out there in all the countries is that the politicians, it's all about land, power, money. They don't incorporate religious laws into their laws. Otherwise, we wouldn't see all the bad stuff out there, would we? Okay? So in terms of capital punishment, stand up firmly for justice as witness to God, even as against yourselves or your parents or your kin, and whether it be against rich or poor. This is all from the Quran. Muslims believe in justice and therefore believe that criminals should be treated justly and be given the chance to reform. Muslims accept that the death penalty is a punishment established by God in the Quran. Take not life which God has made sacred except by way of justice and law. Thus does he command you so that you may learn wisdom. This teaches that although murder is considered a sin, it is acceptable to use capital punishment when required by law. However, there are exceptions. Sharia law states that the family of a murder victim can accept money as reparation rather than enforce the death penalty. Okay? So that, does that, pardon? What do you think then? That should a person who is murdered go to prison?
I think life should mean life if they're convicted. I'm not sure that the religious law of this country,
Yes.
if it was imposed, it would accept capital punishment. They shall not take a life and that.
Yes. But they are punished though in prison.
Yeah, but if you murder
Yes.
someone, you've committed a grave sin.
Yes,
I think
that's
that
right.
Money,
Yes.
return or less than that sin to these bonkers.
Yes. So, I mean, do you think somebody who's murdered then should be killed or not? You think they should just go to prison? You're open.
But there are many examples of convicted of murder who are
Yes, yes. So let me tell you an example. Now, you mentioned I was the King's representative earlier. Believe me, I come across so much, okay? So I have met the Old Bailey judges, and they have told me they are not judges anymore. There is very little money nowadays for prisons, and they are actually asked to let off so many people. And there are so many people who have even murdered, okay? And they are asked beforehand, no, your budget is this much. So in 1 year, you can only send this money to prison because it costs money to run prisons. And this is why a lot of the terrorists are let out early and then they go and do the deed again. Do you understand? So it is really quite bad out there. But having said all this, this is what's in the Quran. Have a look at what's in the Bible about capital punishment. And it also does not mean that this is happening, actually happening. I cannot tell you there is not a single country in the world that practices complete Sharia law. None of it. They all take little bits to suit themselves. And most politicians, yes, they are corrupt, especially in the Islamic countries, I'll be honest with you, because they take on board the law of their own. An example now is where a couple of years ago in Saudi Arabia, the king there said women can't drive. And all of a sudden everybody knew, oh, women can't drive, and that's in your religion. Islam oppresses you. And I said, no, it's not in the religion. It's the actual king who's made that law himself, purpose law to oppress women. Okay? A couple of years later, a king came into power, and all of a sudden the law was women can drive now. So how was that Islam? Okay? So the main problem is or the main, what we see is the parliamentary decisions are separate from the religion, like they are in this country. The parliamentary decisions are separate from the church. And that happened a good 100 years ago or so. I have been to House of Parliament. I'm always in the House of Lords and things. Okay? So, does that answer your capital punishment question? Right, let's have the lady in the orange.
Oh, right, okay.
We will get through all of you, so don't worry. I'm not ignoring you all. I didn't choose you because you already did a question on the niqab. Okay, let's do the lady in the orange.
This is completely different to what we've been discussing already.
That's good. That's what I want.
Explain to me the difference between a Sunni and a Shia.
What is the difference between a Sunni and a Shia? If everybody could put their mobiles on silent, please, because it interferes with the recording as well. Now, completely political, by the way, the differences. The main thing is that all Muslims, they all believe in the Quran and the Hadiths, which is, you know, like the New Testament, the sayings and the life of Jesus, like that we have the sayings and the life of Prophet Muhammad as well. And they all believe in the 5 pillars and everything. The difference is that when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, passed away, people had to choose the next caliph that had to take over. Okay? Now, most people said that it can be anybody who's pious and who the Prophet knew really well, who was his best friend, who knew each and every move that he made. He knew the way he conducted himself with neighbors. He knew the way he was with the orphans and the poor. And we should choose that person who was actually his best friend. And then 20%, 15% of the people said, no, it should be like a king where there's a bloodline going down. Okay? So the Shias believe 15%, the only descendants of Muhammad should be the next caliph or should be caliphs. And 85%, the Sunnis, they believe it does not have to be the descendants of Prophet Muhammad. That's the only difference. It's all political, okay? But they all believe that there's only one God. They all believe in the Quran as the holy book of Islam, and they all practice the 5 pillars. What has made the separation more is the media, again, has caused rifts, and they over-exaggerate. I mean, you can talk to people from Pakistan and they'll say, oh, our next door neighbours are Shia, and we live happily together with them, you know. But the media has made this split more. And Islam has less sects than other religions. So Christianity, for example, has a lot more denominations than Islam. There's only 3 major ones. There's Shias, Sunnis and Sufis make an even less proportion. You have to look at the context in which that verse was revealed. What was the story going on behind it? Do you understand? What was actually happening when that verse was revealed in the Quran? That's the bit where even Muslims don't know sometimes, which is why you have all these problems. What was the story behind why it was revealed? Also, you have to look at the verse before and the verse after as well. Do you understand? The verse before and the verse after as well. You have to look at that. So I'm going to read some of those out, what you just said. One of them was, kill them where you find them. Okay? Wait, the verse right before and after says, this verse was actually about the Quraysh who used to torture the Muslims. Okay, the Quraysh are the tribe, the bad tribe in Arabia that used to torture the Muslims. Fight in the cause of God against those who fight you and do not commit aggression. That was the verse after. And if they cause fighting, then let there be no humility except against the oppressors. That's what the next verse is. Do you understand? So this is how that verse has been misconstrued, by taking it in isolation. So this means do not attack women, children, the elderly, or anyone who is fighting against you. Okay? Slay the pagans where you find them. Stop. Who is this verse referring to? This refers to those pagans who violated their peace agreement by waging war. Okay, so there was a peace agreement that was made between the prophet and the pagans, and they violated that treaty. Okay, and then will you not fight against those who violated their peace treaties, plotted the expulsion of the messenger, and initiated the fighting against you? That's the next verse. Do you see? So I'm so glad you brought that up, but this is what happens with the Quran. While I'm on that topic, I've got to go through the one about the ones that terrorists use, about if you get killed, then you go to heaven in the form of green birds. Yes, it does say that if you are a martyr, you do go to heaven in the form of green birds. Okay? But did you know that that verse was revealed after a very big war took place in Arabia, and all the poor ladies, they were widows. They had lost all their husbands in war, and their sons and their brothers. They had nobody. So did you know God revealed that verse as reassurance for them? Don't worry, your husbands are in heaven. They're alive, and you're going to meet them one day. It's in that context that verse was revealed about the martyrs who gave up their lives in wars and left the poor widows behind. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. And it was reassurance for the poor ladies who had lost their husbands, the breadwinners, their people who protected them, and their sons and their brothers as well. So they had nobody. So when people say, oh, we're going to kill ourselves and we'll go to heaven, I'm sorry, that's the wrong context. Martyrs we're looking at in war who innocently have died. Okay? That's what we mean. We are certainly not allowed to commit suicide. We are not allowed to suicide bomb. In fact, in Islam, if you save one person, it's like saving the whole of mankind. So if you kill yourself and then you're killing others as well, that is wrong. We are not allowed to even wish death on ourselves. We believe in destiny, and we believe that it's God who gave us life, and it's up to God to take our life as well. Okay? We don't believe in abortion for that matter as well. So we are not allowed to commit suicide. There's great punishment actually for committing suicide. We believe that you will be in hellfire, and you know, for example, if you drink poison and kill yourself, that's just poison, then you will end up sipping that in hellfire all your life, forever. That's what we believe. So the assisted dying bill, Muslims do not agree with that. First of all, let me just quickly put this slide up first. If anyone kills an innocent person, it would be as if he has killed the whole of mankind. And if anyone saved a life, it would be as if he has saved the whole of mankind. So there is right out of the Quran why we shouldn't be killing. Tell me which religion kills. All religions are about peace and harmony, are they not? And unity. Tell me if a religion can even be a religion if you're allowed to kill. It doesn't make sense. These people are killing. It's all about themselves, land, power, and money. And we do not call them Muslims. They are not Muslims if they are doing that. Okay? Okay, the assisted dying bill. Very, very important topic. I've actually been in the House of Lords dealing with all of this. In Islam, we believe God gives us life, and it's up to God to take it away when he wants to. Okay? So it is up to God to end our life when it is ordained for it to be ended. If there is any suffering that we are going through while we are, for example, on a life support machine, then we interpret it in a positive that our sins are being forgiven through that hardship. So that is actually in some other faiths as well, where our minor sins are being forgiven while we are ill. It's expelling our sins so that we will have a better afterlife. We do believe in the afterlife, in heaven and hell. And, you know, our destiny should not be in the hands of people. It should be in the hands of God, really. And that's the Islamic stance on the assisted dying bill. A lot of this stuff I do know about the medical field very, very well. My husband is a doctor, my son is a doctor, and a lot of this is about saving NHS resources, electricity for the life support machines. They want to switch them off quickly, and lack of beds and all the rest in hospitals. It's all about saving NHS money. Obviously, prolonging someone's death is going to cost money, is it not, with the NHS? Yeah, that's what it's all about, really. And this is inside information, again, from the House of Lords. I do know what I'm talking about. I sit in right there in the panels. I am a lady, by the way. I'm a lady. I am a lady. Okay? I mean, a lady in the sense of the House of Lords. Okay? Right, yes.
I wanted to ask about halal meat.
Brilliant. Yes. Yes.
Is it just the meat? And how is the meat to be killed? And is that, you know, go along with your cruelty to
Yes. There was another lady, was it Catherine? She told me her name. And she said, please, please, can you answer that question? She will be watching online. So, yes, halal meat has been the way from the beginning of time. If you look at Adam's son, Cain and Abel. Father, if you can remind me, it was Abel, wasn't it? The one who sacrificed and gave a sacrificial offering. Yes? They didn't have machines then to cut the animals' throats. They did it with a knife. Okay? If you look at Abraham, when he was asked to sacrifice his son, and instead he sacrificed a ram, he used a knife. Okay? All this electronic machinery is all nowadays. Okay? So if you study the science, yes, I was a scientist as well in my old life. I did actually start off my education with science. I used to be a scientist. I've studied this properly. So did you know that the scientific method actually is very, very interesting, because by cutting the animal at the jugular vein, which runs from the heart to the brain, it stops the pain immediately. Okay? And then the carotid artery, which is cut, drains all the blood out from the heart within a couple of minutes. So then that meat is much more fresher to eat, because blood contains toxins like urea, which if we consume, it can make us ill. Okay? And by slaughtering the animal in this way, it actually helps with getting rid of the blood from the animal. And then the blood is fresher to eat. There's been many journals to tell us that if you put halal meat in the fridge, it lasts for more than 3 days. It stays fresher. And if you put non-halal meat in the fridge, it takes a lot, it goes off, because it has more microorganisms in it because of the blood content in it. Okay? So, no, we believe that stunning will keep the blood in it, and it clots it up inside the body. Yeah? Yeah, some people believe that that's okay. But if you look at the Hebrew way, the way they slaughter kosher meat, it's exactly the same. Slit cut with a knife. And we believe it's natural. It's not bad. Naturally, the animals are there for our meat. If you look at the meat cycle, and from the beginning of time, that is the way people used to sacrifice meat. You could do it that way, but it's a matter of preference.
Stunning stops the heart.
Yes. but the heart is there to expel the blood out. Let's just read this. First 3 seconds from time of Islamic slaughter as recorded on the EEG did not show any change from the graph before slaughter, indicating the animal did not feel any pain during or after the incision. Following 3 seconds, the EEG recorded a condition of deep sleep, unconsciousness due to a large quantity of blood gushing out from the body. Okay, so while the heart's beating, it expels the blood out. After 6 seconds, the EEG recorded 0 level, showing no feeling of pain at all. As the brain message dropped to 0 level, the heart was still pounding and the body convulsing vigorously, a reflex action of the spinal cord driving maximum blood from the body, resulting in hygienic meat for the consumer. Okay, and this is actually what happens with stunning. Do you want me to read it out? Stunning. Western method of stunning. Stunning put the animal in fear before slaughter. Increase in adrenaline cause the muscle to become stiff. This affects the color and tenderness of the meat. The animals were unconscious soon after stunning. EEG showed severe pain immediately after stunning, even through unconscious. The hearts of the animals stopped beating earlier compared to animals slaughtered according to halal method. So 33% die from stunning. Results in retention of more blood in the meat, clotting. Clotting's the main one I know about. This is unhygienic for the consumer. This study was done by a Jewish scientist, and there is his details if you want to look it up.
And I guess too, if they cook the meat is killed in this way, it probably tastes, not in the stunning way, but in the halal way. It probably tastes nicer.
It does taste nicer and fresher, definitely. Blood in it, less blood in it, yes. Correct, yes. Yes, well done. You're a quite clever lady. You're understanding everything I'm saying. Okay, let's have the lady at the back.
Just a quick question. Why do you worship on Fridays?
Okay. Why do we worship on Fridays? Okay, now we believe, first of all, the Jews worship on a Saturday, okay? And we were asked to distinguish ourselves as a religion because our religion came at the end and it was updated to distinguish ourselves. So that's why it's a Friday. But the other thing, according to Islam, Muslim people have researched, we believe that the original day of worship for Christians was Friday too. However, when Christianity spread around and came into England, the Roman pagans were worshipping the sun on Sunday. Everybody can look up why is it called Sunday. It was the day when you worship the sun. So then a little bit of pagan practices then mixed into Christianity, and then Sunday then was the day of worship, then became around the world. But did you know in some countries, the Coptic Christian Arabs, they still worship God on a Friday. And it's Friday still an important day because of Jesus, Good Friday is still an interesting, important day. And also the original calendar for Christianity was based on the moon as well. We know that from Easter, for example, that's based on the moon. But again, the calendar changed because of mixing in with the Romans and, pagan cultures. But lots of cultural differences happen like that in Islam as well. Our calendar does not mean that we don't follow the sun calendar. We do, okay? So our calendars have got 2 dates on them. One is the Islamic calendar based on the moon, and the other date is the date according to the solar calendar. Okay, so that is a double calendar. It's exactly the same as the Hebrew calendar, which is also based on the moon as well. And they also have 2 dates there as well. Okay, good. You're doing really well with your questions. Well done. So many questions. Shall we have this one here? Because you know why I'm choosing him? Because he asked me this at lunchtime.
It's an observation more than a question.
Yes.
My wife and I lived in Libya in Gibraltar for 2 years, And we thought it was significant that you had the town square. And one side of the town square was the Italian gardens. The other side of the town square was the Catholic Church. The mosque was in another part of the town, but on a different square, but the main town square actually had the Catholic Church on it.
Yeah. Okay. And that is because, did you know that, first of all, did you know that Muslims, whichever land they are living in, have to abide by the law of the land? So that gets rid of all this big stigma that, oh no, Muslims are going to establish Sharia law in this land. No, we have to follow the law of the land. That is actually in our books. However, if you came to an Islamic country, you can establish your laws in Islamic countries. And that's what it says. Islamic law permits non-Muslims to set up their own courts and implement their own family laws. And that actually includes places of worship as well. That's what the law says in Islam. And did you know that even in a war, which is done because of self-defense, we are not allowed to destroy places of worship. Did you know that? So war, first of all, is the last resort. And we do have very, very rigorous conditions. They're only allowed in self-defense only. And that is to protect ourselves because of injustice. But there are strict laws that include prohibitions against harming civilians and their homes, and the land of the enemy is forbidden. And you're not allowed to kill a child or a woman, nor an old man, because they're vulnerable. No harm to the trees. We're not allowed to burn them, especially if they are fruitful. We're not allowed to slay enemy's flock. Okay, and we are not allowed to destroy any people who are devoted in their lives to monastic services. Leave them alone, it says. So these are people like monks. And we're not allowed to destroy buildings or destroy a worship place. Did you know that? So if there's any churches in our lands, we're not allowed to destroy them. You are allowed to come into our lands and establish places of worship. So children, women are not allowed to be killed, or infants, or elderly, anybody disabled or sick. We're not allowed to cut any trees. And any beehives, any cattle. Don't kill an animal except for eating. Any wells. We're not allowed to poison waters of the enemy. All this stuff you hear in the media where, water is poisoned and things. We're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to kill anybody who is surrendered. Be good to the prisoners and feed them. Don't kill anybody who's run away. Do not enforce Islam. And we're not allowed to disfigure the dead either, which is another thing you hear about, don't you? All this mutilation of dead bodies and stuff. Yes.
That meant if you're not disarmed.
Okay.
Sorry, just a quick correction, the other question. So we worship on a Sunday because of Matthew 28. The question is, during the Islamic conquest of the Arabian Peninsula, the Sasanian Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the Iberian Peninsula, which was undertaken by the Umayyad Caliphate and the Rashidun Caliphate, where hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of Christian and Zoroastrians were fighting to protect the land and were killed with the exception of Jerusalem, Egypt, due to Byzantine pressure, and were subjected to finitude. So my question is, under your Islamic framework, which I assume is Sunnism?
Yes, like I said, Islam is all the same, but my particular sect, yes, is Sunni.
Underneath your framework, which is Sunnism, do you approve of the offensive jihad undertaken by the traditional Umayyad Caliphate and the Rashidun Caliphate?
See, are you talking about the conquest of Mecca?
No, the Iberian Peninsula, the Byzantine Empire, and the Sasanian Empire as well.
What, later on, you mean?
The first 100 years.
The first 100 years of Islam, yes. So basically, what you have to remember is that I wasn't there, so I didn't do it, you know. But you have to look at the context, what was actually happening, because as far as I know, when Islam finally, after many years of hardship, conquested Mecca, so many enemies came from all over, and they came to kill. And then their self-defense, under self-defense, you are allowed then to fight in war. It's under self-defense. So we have to look at the history, what was actually happening. If there was people coming over to kill and to destroy you, and take over maybe the land of Arabia, then you've got to then have self-defense.
Just a quick reply. If it was self-defense and the Muslims were from Arabia, how did they reach all the way to the borderline of France? Is it defensive?
Okay, let me pop up my slides on.
Can I partly answer that?
Yes, go on then.
There's no army that went to Malaysia, and that's the biggest population in the world right now. So my question is, what army went to Indonesia?
Or to make the original Rashid army and the Umayyad Caliphate? They was continued with Muhammad. Am I right or am I wrong?
Went to Malaysia?
No, Umayyad Caliphate.
The Umayyad Empire was from Umar, who was the caliph, one of the caliphs after the Prophet died. The Umayyad Empire, I mean, I've got a whole talk on the Umayyad Empire, where when they went into Jerusalem, there was a treaty with the king. And I can send that to you. If you could give me your email address.
Jerusalem and Egypt.
Yes.
Everywhere else?
Yeah. Yeah. There was.
Do you condone that or do you accept that? Underneath your Islamic framework?
Well, I know that when they went into Jerusalem, the king very happily wrote a letter, which they both signed. And I know that Umar actually said, you can carry on with your places of worship and you can pray in them as well. Yes.
Every other country, Libya, Morocco, Algeria, southern part of Spain.
But then Algeria was also conquered by the French, or they're not?
This is way before that.
Yeah.
The first 100 years of Islam, so they were underneath the Byzantine Empire, who were Christian.
Yes. So, again, we need to look at what was actually happening. I'm not a historian, but I'd have to look into the wars coming towards them. But I will answer your question in this way. So let's talk about, was Islam spread by the sword? Okay. So Muslims were the lords of Arabia for 1400 years. For a few years, the British ruled, and for a few years, the French ruled. Overall, the Muslims ruled Arabia for 1400 years. Yet today, there are 14 million Arabs who are Coptic Christians. They are the Christians who have been there since generations. Okay. And if the Muslims had used the sword, there would not have been a single Arab who would have remained a Christian. There are many Christians in Egypt. There are many Christians in Libya. I know a lady from Libya because there's so many Christians in our land. I mean, there was the gentleman who mentioned about the Catholic Church. That was in Libya, wasn't it? Yeah. So, Islam was never spread by the sword. Okay. Additionally, did you know that when the Holocaust happened, what Holocaust do you know of that happened on Muslim lands? There was never a Holocaust in the Middle East, ever. In fact, refuge was given to the Jews, which I'll come up with the next slide. So additionally, Christian and Jewish minorities have survived in the Muslim lands of the Middle East for centuries. Countries such as Egypt, Morocco, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan all have thriving Christians or Jewish populations for over the past 13 centuries. Indonesia, I think you mentioned, is a country that has the maximum number of Muslims in the world. The majority of people in Malaysia are Muslims, but there was no sword there in Indonesia or Malaysia. No army went ever there. Similarly, Islam has spread rapidly on the east coast of Africa, and one may again ask that there was never a sword there to spread. In fact, we were speaking to somebody here from South Africa earlier, wasn't it? I forget it was. Yes, yes, you. Okay. In 1492, Spanish monarchs decided to expel all Jews from Spain. Ottoman Sultan Bayezid II ordered his navy to rescue persecuted Jews and offer them safety in the Ottoman Empire. And the Queen Elizabeth I asked the Ottoman Sultan for naval assistance against the Spanish Armada in 1588. So these are actually Muslims helping the Jews. Is Islam respectful of other beliefs? Muslims ruled Spain for 800 years and never used the sword to force people to convert. During this time and up to when they were finally forced out, the non-Muslims there were treated with the utmost of respect and flourishing communities. You may have heard of the golden age of Islam that happened at the time. Now, Muslims ruled India for 1,000 years. Now, Hinduism, if you think about it, is the opposition religion to Islam, isn't it? Because it's polytheistic religion and it's to do with idol worship, which Islam came to get rid of. But if they wanted to, they had the power to convert each and every non-Muslim to Islam. But did you know, even today, 80% of the population of India are Hindus. And yet some of the leaders there, the Mughal Empire, were Muslim. Islamic law protects the status of minorities. Prophet Muhammad himself had a very peaceful nature. He was extremely tolerant and highly protective of the non-Muslim minorities living in the Muslim state. Prophet said, whoever oppresses any non-Muslim, I shall be his prosecutor on the day of judgment. That's what he said. Okay? And the non-Muslims, they do not have to pay any tax in Muslim countries either. That's why you don't pay anything when you go to Dubai. Okay. Islamic law permits non-Muslims to set up their own courts and implement their own family laws. The Quran says, let there be no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error. That's actually a quote from the Quran.
Can I just,
yes.
If Muslims are supposed to follow the law of the land,
yes,
isn't it a paradox to say they can then set up their own courts and follow Sharia law?
That's for non-Muslims can set up their own courts and laws in our Muslim lands.
Well, Muslims don't necessarily have to follow the law of the land.
Muslims have to follow the law of the land that they live in. So when we are living in England, we follow the law of this country.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be about 100 Sharia courts as one in England.
Yeah, but that's to help specifically with certain topics like marriage, which are done under Sharia law. So this, I think, is a very, very important question. With a couple that is married under Sharia law, Islam, yeah, they've had their own exchanging of contracts. Then English law can't deal with that marriage. That marriage is not recognized in English law. So say a woman wants to divorce a man, you go to an English court and they'll say, well, you're not married in the first place. Do you understand? Yeah, so you know what happens? There is a big problem. No, they do as well, but there's two marriages. I had two marriages. You have one marriage, which is to do with the Islamic law, where an imam is there and you take your vows and you have a different marriage contract. Yes? Where, you know, there's so many things in marriage contracts. And then according to the law of this land, we have to get married according to this country. Okay? So when a Muslim woman gets divorced, she has to get divorced Islamically. Okay? As well, to get rid of the man. Okay? And yeah. Well, she will get a divorce.
Catholics in the room are so different in Catholics.
Yes. Father.
Married in church, but there's a civil dimension as well.
Yes. Yes.
Gets a religious marriage. There's going to be a civil.
So we have both, but with an Islamic marriage, for the nikah, you need an Islamic divorce. Do you understand? And this is actually one big problem, I would say, that is happening, is where a Muslim woman would want to divorce a Muslim man according to Islamic law, okay, then she has to go to the Sharia court, like you said, in London, to deal with that and get usually guidance on it. I have had a friend who recently had to deal with all of this, and the laws are different. So according to civil marriage, you know, you got to go to the English court, but then for the Islamic marriage, you got to get to the Islamic court. This one. It's not just marriage; it can be other matters too. Yes. Yeah, a mortgage. It's to stop debt and things, you see, so people don't get into debt, and so that they don't end up. No, you do follow the law of the land, but the Islamic bit is in addition to that. But you still have to follow the law of the land, because no one wants to end up in prison, and no one wants to end up doing something that they can get into trouble for, you see. So you do have to follow the law of the land.
To the marriage thing, in Germany, there is no religious marriage that's recognised by the state. You have to have civil marriage, and you have the religious marriage separately, and they're dealt with separately.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, our marriage not.
Right. Yes, so that's similar then of what I'm saying. To annul the marriage, you have to go to the Islamic place to annul that marriage. But I'm not going to say this is easy, because I've got friends that have been going through this. So.
Sidra, we have 3 minutes.
Pardon?
3 minutes.
Oh, you're being very strict here. There's so many questions though. Grooming, did you say? Okay, again, this happens in all cultures, but when it comes to Islam.
The scale it's on going on here. It's coming up. It's by councils, police.
Yes, correct. Yes, it is happening.
A million young girls were raped in this country by Muslim gangs.
Yes, but like I said, it's Muslims are exposed out there more. It does happen everywhere. Pornography is everywhere, okay? And also, it doesn't mean that those men that are doing it are practicing Muslims. This is something that we've got to remember. It's like saying Hitler was a Christian. Yeah? He was a Catholic, wasn't he? But look at what he did. It doesn't mean if your religion is that religion and you're going to do everything in that religion. It's like saying, oh, everybody who's Christian goes to church and prays the Bible, reads the Bible. Everybody's got the name of their religion, but then what they do is up to them, isn't it? But you cannot tarnish the whole of the religion by the acts of a handful.
We work with
Pedophiles, yes.
The victims of paedophile rings.
Yes.
It's in every culture.
It is.
It's in every
It is.
And it's on our doorstep. So
Yes, yes.
The way the media has, yes, we're speaking.
I think on that wonderful note
Yes.
of reality, I just want to intervene now and say it is 2:00, people want to go home, and I want to compliment Sidra and indeed others on the wonderful way in which you've faced all these issues and endeavoured to look at things honestly. That if we look at things honestly, we will then learn respect for other faiths. And that's what the Vatican Council wants us to do. Not to be converted to other faiths, unless you really feel that's the way to go, but to understand others and to build that world of peace and understanding which we value the gifts. These are all different gifts of God. Right? So thank you so much, Sidra, for coming, giving us all that time. Thank you for being here, all of you people. I'm just relieving you of the burden by calling the shots now. And thank you to all of those who joined us online and will join us online. You may like to put in your diaries the 22nd of February, when there will be a follow-up to this, but more details will come in time. Thank you very much.